Breaking right now at 4:30, a brazen shooting a block from St. Sabina in the middle of 79th Street, leaving one person dead and a second in the hospital.
A 15-year-old rapper is dead. A young woman connected to a rival camp was caught in a mass shooting. And one name keeps showing up at the center of both conversations on both sides of Chicago's most explosive faction war. That name is Fullychop, and what makes his story different from every other name the streets have whispered is this. The people who know Chicago's South Side best, the ones embedded in the geography, the block histories, the crew affiliations, and the years of documented beef, are not whispering his name. They are saying it out loud, with detail, with receipts, and with the kind of certainty that only comes from knowing far more than what has made it into any official statement. Behind the music, behind the rapid rise, behind the controversial reputation that preceded his arrest, there is a documented trail connecting this young rapper to some of the most serious ongoing investigations the city has seen in years. And the closer you look at the timeline, the social media evidence, the faction war, and the pattern of incidents surrounding him, the harder it becomes to dismiss what the community has been saying since December 2024. We have been tracking this story from multiple angles, and what we found goes deeper than what is currently circulating online. Yo, what's good, fam? We are about to dive deep into some real street drama that has been shaking up Chicago's entire drill scene for well over a year. The full documented story of Fullychop, why his name keeps surfacing in murder investigations, what the digital evidence actually shows, and why the streets were talking about all of this long before any arrests were made. Now, before we get into everything, let me keep it 100 with y'all. Throughout this video, we are going to be deliberate about distinguishing between what is officially documented, what has been publicly reported, and what exists primarily as community speculation. That distinction matters enormously, because in Chicago's drill world, the gap between what the internet believes and what a court of law has established can be the difference between truth and the narrative that destroys someone without due process. Chicago drill communities are extraordinarily knowledgeable about street geography, faction dynamics, and interpersonal conflicts, and are often ahead of official investigations in identifying relevant connections. But they are not courts of law, and the community has been wrong before about specific attributions, even when the broader picture they painted proved directionally accurate. Both kinds of cases exist in the history of Chicago drill. And assuming one category before the legal process concludes is how you end up carrying somebody's guilt or innocence on behalf of a process that is not finished yet. With that said, the factual record surrounding Fullychop is serious enough on its own that it does not require embellishment. The documented arrests, the confirmed gang affiliation monitoring, the verified digital evidence, the released music, and the publicly reported incidents raise substantial questions all by themselves. Everything presented in this video is drawn from publicly available police records, documented news reports, confirmed social media content, verified community journalism, and publicly circulating drill commentary sources. Now hold up before y'all start thinking this is just another internet rumor or fan speculation built on nothing. The incidents we are about to walk through are documented. The arrests are real, the faction war is real, and the connections are far more specific than most people realize. But here's where it gets real spicy. So check it. Fullychop is a young rapper born and raised on Chicago's South Side, affiliated with both the PGF set and HBMB, which stands for Headband Mob Bloodhounds, operating out of the 59th and Paulina corridor in the Englewood and Auburn Gresham area. PGF connects to the Black P Stones, and HBMB is a blood-affiliated set. Together, these factions are locked in active, documented, and lethal territorial conflicts with rival sets including M Block and Risky Road. These are not abstract internet feuds. They are warring factions with a documented body count on multiple sides, and Chicago law enforcement actively monitors every prominent figure affiliated with each of them. Fullychop emerged publicly within this environment, started posting music to SoundCloud in 2024, moved his content to YouTube in early 2025, and released tracks including Cracked His Head, None, Super Slime, Devil in My Head, Off the X, and Chase. He had been visible in PGF Nuke's circle for years before releasing his own music, appearing in Nuke's video content and building credibility through association before his solo career launched. That early connection to an established Southside name gave him a head start in neighborhood credibility that very few emerging artists receive. His lyrics document block life with the specificity of someone who is not performing a character but describing his actual world. And that authenticity is precisely what gave him traction so rapidly. In Chicago's new generation drill scene, that kind of unambiguous street credibility is the fastest path to visibility. It is also, as Fullychop's story demonstrates, the fastest path to sustain law enforcement attention. Now in the hood, you do not establish yourself in Chicago's drill scene through streaming numbers alone. You establish yourself through what the streets say about you, through who you are seen with, and through whether your music rings true to the people who live the life you are describing. Fullychop built that reputation fast, and it built loud. His social media presence was confrontational from the beginning. His Instagram lives frequently put him in direct conflict with rivals, and his connections to ongoing neighborhood tensions gave his music a weight that went beyond entertainment. For people who follow Chicago drill closely, he came across as someone fully embedded in the world he was rapping about, rather than narrating it from a comfortable distance. That authenticity is the engine of his appeal, but it is also the engine of his legal exposure. The Chicago Police Department's gang intelligence and digital forensics units actively monitor prominent drill artists' social media footprints. As part of ongoing gang intelligence gathering, a practice documented in connection with multiple high-profile Chicago prosecutions, when CPD identifies someone as a prominent member of an active rival faction, monitoring their public digital output becomes a standard intelligence function. Fullychop's rapid rise made him a subject of that monitoring from essentially the moment he became publicly known. Every live stream, every posted lyric, every tag photo, and every official music video he released was entering a law enforcement digital evidence archive simultaneously with his growing fan base. The FBG ducked federal prosecution, which concluded with 6 Block members convicted and sentenced to life in January 2024. Established definitively that social media content, drill music videos, and digitally documented gang activity could anchor federal racketeering cases. That precedent was established before Fullychop released his first commercial track. He was entering a landscape where the rules of evidence had already been written in blood by the generation before him. But here is where it gets real. The nickname that has followed Fullychop everywhere through the underground is the Backdoor King. And in Chicago's street culture, there are very few labels more damaging than this one. To be called a backdoor means the community believes you have a pattern of setting up close associates to be harmed from the inside, using personal trust as a weapon rather than engaging conflict directly. It implies the deepest form of betrayal, and in a world where loyalty is the only currency that truly matters, it marks someone permanently. The accusation is particularly serious in Fullychop's case because it preceded his most significant legal trouble. The community was already calling him a backdoor before the Lil Kesu situation came to a head, meaning the label was not retrofitted after arrests happened. It was applied independently based on community analysis of his behavior, his affiliations, and the pattern of incidents surrounding him. Fullychop addressed this nickname directly in a widely circulated DJU-TV interview in 2025, pushing back against what he described as internet talk blown out of proportion. He challenged the framing and denied the characterization, but the label had already embedded itself deeply in how the community interpreted everything connected to him. Once a framework exists for understanding someone in this world, every subsequent event gets filtered through it. The Backdoor King label meant that whenever violence touched people in Fullychop's orbit, the community already knew exactly what narrative to apply. The date that changed everything for Fullychop's public profile was December 3rd, 2024. That evening, 15-year-old Chicago drill rapper Lil Kesu, whose real name was Kenwan, was fatally shot near the corner of 67th and Parnell in Inglewood. The location sits in the same general Southside geography that Fullychop himself calls home, within the network of blocks where the PGF and HB&B versus M Block and Risky Road conflict plays out on a daily basis. Lil Kesu had been gaining momentum in the local scene, building a following on SoundCloud and YouTube with music that authentically reflected Southside life. He was 15 years old and had been active on social media in the hours before the shooting, posting from his block with no apparent awareness of what was approaching. Footage of him in what appeared to be his final hours on the block circulated widely after his death. adding a devastating human dimension to what might otherwise have been processed as just another statistic in the city's violent year. His real name, Kenwan, and his age 15 stopped people in the drill community in a particular way. Community members who had watched him develop online knew his voice, knew his neighborhood references, and knew the people he was connected to. The specificity of that prior knowledge made the grief sharper and the demand for answers more urgent and more immediate. Tributes flooded TikTok within hours. Drill commentary pages memorialized him across Instagram and YouTube. And almost simultaneously with those tributes, Fullychop's name entered the conversation in the most serious way it had ever appeared, attached to a specific accusation that the community had been waiting to apply to someone in his position. Now let me break down for y'all exactly how the digital evidence in this case goes beyond community theory and into law enforcement territory, because this is one of the most significant and least discussed parts of the Fullychop story. Exactly 1 year after Lil Kesu was killed, on December 21st, 2025, while Fullychop was already under investigation and scrutiny for Kesu's death, he released an official music video titled KSO Glock. The song is commercially available on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Music, and every other major streaming platform. Its lyrics contain the line Kesu Glock. His shit was water, explicitly mocking Lil Kesu by name in a track released to the public months after the arrest for his murder. That line naming Kesu directly was not subtle, and it was not aimed at a small audience. It was placed in a commercially released song with a full music video that was promoted across his social media channels to his entire fan base. Additional lyrics in the track referenced chasing, shooting, and confronting figures on Kesu's side with specific geographic and personal detail that the community analyzed extensively in the days following the release. Reaction channels broke the video down line by line within hours of it going live, pointing to specific lyrical references as potential evidence of involvement in or knowledge of the shooting. This is precisely the kind of digital behavior that CPD's gang intelligence and digital forensics units document as part of ongoing homicide investigations. When a rapper releases commercially distributed music that mocks a deceased rival by name while under investigation for that rival's death, law enforcement interprets that release as evidence of consciousness of the event, a possible expression of motive, and a potential implicit acknowledgement of connection to the circumstances surrounding the death. That interpretation does not constitute proof in a court of law, but it adds to an evidence package. And prosecutors in Chicago have successfully used music, social media posts, and digital taunts as supporting evidence in serious cases, including the O-Block federal trial where Instagram activity and documented digital behavior contributed to life sentences. Fullychop created and released KSO Glock voluntarily, publicly, and commercially while under active investigation, generating exactly the kind of post-incident digital behavior that investigators document and that prosecutors eventually decide what to do with. The arrests that followed came in July 2025, after months of sustained community focus and parallel investigative work. Both Fullychop and Lil Speedy were taken into custody in connection with Lil Su's murder. The community theory circulating since December 2024 had consistently pointed to Fullychop allegedly setting Kesu up from the inside while Lil Speedy allegedly executed the act. The arrest aligned with the general direction the community had been pointing for 7 months. TikTok creators who have been discussing the case since December treated the arrest as confirmation. YouTube commentary channels broke the news and rapidly amassed views from an audience primed by months of detailed community analysis. Lil Kesu's mother publicly addressed the situation following the arrest, speaking directly to what the loss meant for her family and for the community. Drill commentary accounts reported that Lil Speedy may have made statements while in custody that further implicated both himself and Fullychop. The YFT chain that Kesu allegedly took from Fullychop's circle, an incident Fullychop had discussed publicly in an interview and which the community had identified as motive, continued to be cited as the spark that preceded the fatal encounter. The legal proceedings for both Fullychop and Lil Speedy remained ongoing at the time this video was prepared. No conviction had been secured. The presumption of innocence applies legally until the process concludes. But the arrests reflect law enforcement's determination that probable cause existed to charge both individuals in connection with the 15-year-old's death. Now, this is where we got to address the risky band situation directly, because it is one of the most specific and most discussed reasons fans have been putting Fullychop's name in the center of the most serious conversations happening in Chicago's drill community. Risky Bands is a Chicago rapper affiliated with the Risky Road set, which operates out of the 104th and Maryland area in Roseland on Chicago's South Side. Risky Road is associated with the Four Corner Hustlers, and their conflict with Fullychop's PGF and HBNB factions is documented across drill community coverage, law enforcement gang intelligence monitoring, and publicly released music from both sides. That is not internet theory. That is a well-documented and ongoing faction war with casualties on both sides throughout 2024, 2025, and 2026. Now, within that documented conflict, drill communities including Cheericology on Reddit, TikTok commentary accounts, and YouTube channels covering Chicago street news began circulating a specific allegation that Fullychop and his side were responsible for the killing of Risky Band's sister. This accusation spread widely across the same platforms that had previously tracked the Lil Kesu situation, reaching tens of thousands of viewers within days and generating the kind of sustained drill community attention that had become a familiar precursor to more serious developments in Fullychop's story. Fans pointed to the documented faction war between the two sides, to the timing of the incident relative to ongoing beef between PGF and HBNB and Risky Road, and to the pattern of retaliatory violence that both communities had been documenting for over a year as the foundation of their belief that Fullychop's side was responsible. The accusation fit directly into the broader Backdoor King narrative that had already attached itself to his name, and it spread with the same intensity and the same community certainty that had preceded the Lil Kesu arrest by 7 months. Now here is where you have to understand something about how Chicago drill community allegations work. The fact that something spreads with intensity and community certainty does not automatically make it verified fact. At the time this video was prepared, no formal charges publicly connecting Fullychop to the killing of Risky Band's sister have been documented in court records or official police statements. What has been documented is the community accusation itself, the faction war that makes it plausible in the community's eyes, and the pattern of incidents surrounding Fullychop that makes his name the first one spoken whenever violence touches the Risky Road side. That is the honest picture. And then the situation escalated further. On June 19, 2026, Risky Bands himself was reportedly among the 12 to 14 people shot in a mass drive-by shooting near 95th Street and Princeton Avenue in Roseland during the Juneteenth celebration. The Chicago Police Department confirmed the incident and opened an active investigation. A red SUV drove through the crowd and 2 occupants opened fire directly into the group. ABC7 Chicago and multiple local outlets covered the shooting as one of the most significant mass casualty events on the South Side in recent memory. Drill commentary pages documented the connection between the shooting and the ongoing PGF and HBNB versus Risky Road conflict immediately. That is, 2 separate incidents touching the same rapper and the same family on the same side of the same documented faction war, with Fullychop's name surfacing in community conversations around both. No formal charges connecting him to either incident were publicly confirmed at the time of this video. But in the court of community opinion, which in Chicago drill tends to reach its verdicts long before official investigators do, his name was already on the record for both. Let me break down the broader legal record for y'all, because beyond the Kesu murder case and the Risky Road situation, Fullychop had already accumulated a separate pattern of arrests and legal exposure that reinforces why law enforcement had been monitoring him intensely before either of those events reached their peak. At an earlier point in 2025, Fullychop and a Chicago drill figure named Quan Get 'Em Gone were arrested together on attempted murder charges. The charges against Fullychop in that particular case were subsequently dropped, while Quan Get 'Em Gone reportedly remained charged. The differential outcome generated significant online discussion and became a specific topic of analysis in drill commentary channels covering his situation. The question of how Fullychop's charges were dropped, but not Quan Get 'Em Gone's, remained publicly unresolved, with community analysts pointing to various possible explanations including lack of sufficient individual evidence, witness issues, or other factors that investigators did not publicly detail. That unanswered question added another layer of complexity to the community's perception of how Fullychop moves through the legal system. Additionally, Fullychop was arrested on a separate occasion after apparently displaying a firearm during an Instagram live session, an act that generated its own substantial wave of commentary given the serious legal scrutiny already surrounding him at the time of the broadcast. The fact that someone operating under active investigation would create that kind of digital evidence in real time and broadcast it to thousands of followers became a topic of genuine bewilderment in the community. His PGF affiliate, known as Vic from HBNB, was also arrested on separate charges documented by drill commentary sources as part of the broader pattern of law enforcement pressure on the PGF and HBNB network as a whole. Taken together, the attempted murder arrest and subsequent drop charges, the weapons-related Instagram Live arrest, the affiliate arrest, and the murder charge in the Kesu case form a legal history that is unusually dense and unusually serious for an artist who had been publicly releasing music for barely over a year. Real talk, what all of this adds up to is a picture of someone under sustained law enforcement scrutiny for the entire duration of his public career, who has contributed significantly to that scrutiny through his own digital behavior, and who operates at the documented center of a faction war over the serious and growing body count. The Cheerocology community on Reddit, TikTok drill commentators, and YouTube channels covering Chicago street news have all played a meaningful role in building the public narrative around Fullychop. Cheerocology functions as a research community where users with deep knowledge of Southside geography and crew structures piece together timelines that sometimes predate anything law enforcement has publicly released. That community analysis is not always accurate in its specific attributions, but in the coup case, it pointed in the direction that official arrest confirmed 7 months later, reinforcing the community's sense of its own investigative validity. Internet community judgment and official law enforcement process run in parallel, sometimes converging, sometimes diverging. And the subject of that scrutiny is a young man whose entire visible life has been documented in real time, frequently by himself since before he was old enough to fully understand the permanent weight of that documentation. He generated the evidence trail. He distributed it voluntarily. In Chicago's current investigative environment, that carries consequences extending far beyond any individual post or song. At the end of the day, Fullychop's story is about more than one rapper's individual choices. It is about the structural collision between Chicago's active faction war culture, the drill music scene that grew out of that culture and continues to document it in real time, the digital era's relentless demand for authenticity from its artists, and the law enforcement apparatus that has spent over a decade learning to weaponize that demand against the people who satisfy it most completely. As of July 2026, the Lil Kesu murder case is actively moving through the courts with proceedings ongoing for both Fullychop and Lil Speedy. The June 2026 mass shooting at 95th and Princeton that struck Risky Bands and at least 12 others is still under active investigation by the Chicago Police Department. The PGF and HBNB versus M Block and Risky Road conflict that contextualizes everything surrounding Fullychop shows no signs of ending, and casualties on both sides continue to mount. And Fullychop himself, the young rapper from Inglewood who started posting music to SoundCloud in 2024 and built a substantial following within months, is navigating all of it through a legal situation that grows more consequential with every new development in the cases surrounding him. He has not been convicted of murder. He has not been formally charged with murder by the Cook County State's Attorney as of July 2026. The courts will ultimately determine what his legal accountability looks like. But the documented gang affiliations, the active investigations, the confirmed arrests and dropped charges, the released music mocking a deceased rival by name while under active investigation for his death, and the extensive digital evidence trail he has created and distributed publicly across Instagram, YouTube, and every major streaming platform have already produced a public narrative with enormous momentum behind it. A momentum that does not wait for courts, does not slow down while proceedings continue, and does not disappear regardless of how the legal process ultimately concludes. The real question this story raises is what it reveals about where Chicago drill is right now, in this specific moment, with this specific generation. The genre built itself on the principle that it would document the present tense of the communities it comes from, without sanitizing or softening the truth of what that present tense actually contains. Chief Keef established that principle in the early 2010s and paid for it with a decade of legal and personal upheaval. King Von carried it forward until November 2020, when he was killed outside an Atlanta hookah lounge a week after his debut album debuted at number 5 on the Billboard 200. FBG Duck carried it until August 2020, when he was gunned down on the Gold Coast while shopping for his son's birthday present, an act that ultimately resulted in 6 life sentences for the O-Block members convicted in the federal trial. And now, Fullychop represents that same tradition in 2024, 2025, and 2026. A young artist fully embedded in the most volatile active conflict on Chicago's South Side, making music that documents that conflict in real time, releasing songs that mock deceased rivals by name while under investigation for their deaths, and navigating a legal and reputational situation that the genre's history suggests has a very limited number of outcomes. The culture has always demanded this specific level of authenticity from its artists. It has also consistently extracted an extraordinary and often permanent, irreversible price from the people who deliver it most fully and most visibly. Whether the end of Fullychop's current situation brings formal conviction, acquittal, or something more complicated than either of those outcomes, this story is already a chapter in the ongoing chronicle of what Chicago drill demands from the people who live it, instead of just performing it. The city is watching closely, the community is watching, and now, so are you. What are your thoughts on Fullychop's full situation, the active investigation surrounding him, and what this broader pattern reveals about Chicago's drill scene right now? Drop your full perspective in the comments below and click on the video on screen for more in-depth Chicago drill stories.